Welcome to the Chicago Sun-Times midterm election preview show. I'm Lynn Sweet, coming to you on our live stream, live from the Chicago Sun-Times news headquarters in the West Loop. Our election partner and sponsor of this live stream is AARP Illinois, whose survey revealed that fiscal crisis should be the top priority for all Illinois candidates, for all candidates. Now, welcome to all of you who are watching on our website. If you are following this conversation on Twitter, we are using the hashtag SunTimesLive. Now, before I get to my guests, I just want to give you some news that will be happening later today that actually is going to fit into our conversation. At about 3:15 Chicago time, President Trump is going to make remarks from the Roosevelt Room in the White House on what he calls the illegal immigration crisis, and he's going to give an update on border security. Now, this is a very apt topic that we're going to be talking about soon with my two guests, so let me introduce you. My guests include two academics who have specialized knowledge into the world of academic research and how it dovetails onto political behavior. Elvin Tillery is an associate professor of political science and director of the Center for the Study of Diversity and Democracy at Northwestern University. And psychologist Stephen Hopfel is the former chair of the Department of Behavioral Sciences at Rush University Medical Center. He's now a private consultant. He's a former officer in the Israeli Defense Forces. And Stephen Hopfel is the author of the new book, Tribalism: The Evolutionary Origins of Fear Politics. So, gentlemen, we're talking in a very hectic week dealing with not only the run-up to the midterm election, but a week of domestic terrorism. It's not like we had planned this conversation today knowing all this would happen, but I can't think of two people who could kind of help us analyze it. We have lived through the horrible Pittsburgh shootings at the synagogue, the pipe bombs sent to public officials, and the frenzy that President Trump is whipping up in his speeches and actions before the midterms about illegal immigration, his threat to yank citizenship, birthright citizenship, and his threat to send up to 15,000 troops to the border. So one of the things, Steve, that you write in your book that I thought was kind of apt to start our conversation is this, and looking at Trump. You said, if we look at the way tribalism supersedes reason, we might not have predicted Donald Trump to win the presidency in 2016, but we would have fully understood the energy and power behind his campaign and its messaging. The ingredients were all there, and he was astute enough to observe them and highlight them repetitively. So, Steve, can you kind of fit into the context of this week what your research and experience in dealing with this kind of what you call tribalism fits into the politics of today?
Yes. Well, the fact is most of us live safe lives, and when people are safe, they're complacent. So the idea of fear politics is make those people feel unsafe, and the way you make people feel unsafe is you threaten them with invasion of immigrants, with individuals who are going to come in their homes and attack them if only we allow them in the border, and creating a fear of those that are already here. So exploiting the black-white divide. We're already in most places a segregated society. And so the idea here for Trump is he has this idea of white working class, but it's really the white part that he speaks to, not really the working class part. The other working class actually become the enemy.
Interesting. So, Professor, you specialize in racial and ethnic politics. So what's your take on what's happening right now?
Well, I think Steve's absolutely right. I mean, we've never seen in the television age a president who has tried, with open sort of racial appeals to mobilize white people to engage in open racial politics. We've had what we call dog whistles and code words. We've had people like President Reagan, when he first launched his campaign in 1980, going to Neshoba, Mississippi, to talk about sort of states' rights. So there are all kinds of codes embedded in that language to allow that component of the base that Steve's talking about to know that the presidential candidate or the president was with those people. But we've never seen a president drill down in such a narrow way and use the politics of fear while governing in such a narrow way. And it's very dangerous. And my fear is that words have power when they come from the White House, the bully pulpit. And we've seen a spike in hate crimes against people of color, against American Jews since President Trump has taken office. And the Squirrel Hill Tree of Life Synagogue is just the most egregious example of what can happen in an undisciplined environment.
Well, actually, Vice President Joe Biden was campaigning in Illinois yesterday, in St. Charles and in East St. Louis, and in his speech in St. Charles, which was for candidate Lauren Underwood, who's running for Congress, he has this phrase that he uses all the time, that words matter and how you say it. How is, you talk about in your book a little bit about the language of doom. How does language then work with people who might be either, what is it, hardwired towards leaning towards being receptive to this? How does it work? Is there a scientific reason why some people kind of, I want to be respectful that people have opinions, but let me just say this for the sake of our conversation. Why do some people take the bait, in a sense, and some don't?
Well, really, we all take the bait. We just all take our bait. So on women's issues, on both sides of the abortion issue, there is a lack of even an attempt to understand the other side that is felt viscerally. And both sides believing they're entirely right without question. On issues of protecting America, we all feel that. We all take that bait. I think on the invasion of Iraq, something like 89% of Americans were in favor of the invasion. So it's a matter of which bait you take. Now, there are some interesting differences there, that if you've experienced deep loss or threat, such as working class whites who feel a great sense of loss and have had loss of status and jobs, that you're much more vulnerable to this. Certainly all of us, if there's a threat to our direct family, we're vulnerable to any messages that might protect our family or signal further risk to our family.
Mm-hmm. And Trump, in the closing days of the campaign, just is honing in on the other. That's why I think he's stressing immigration so much. In the analysis of stressing immigration in the closing days of the campaign, do you think that impacts people who are persuadable, or just motivates people who might stay home in a midterm election?
Well, I mean, I think our data that we've been collecting through polls nationally suggests that what this focus on immigration does is it gins up support among his base, and that this is going to be a base election. And so this is a very important tactic, but the two leading issues in national polling for Republicans and Democrats, that aren't hard, hard committed in the Trump base, so I should say independents and Democrats, are healthcare and the economy. And so with a focus on immigration, what Mr. Trump does is he sort of gins up support among that third of the population that really is his core. But that's not a growth strategy. That's a strategy for holding seats in these red state districts that we see are surprisingly close.
Right, well, that's the
what's
point.
Happening.
This strategy does not let you grow the base, it just lets you turn out the base.
It lets you turn out the base, absolutely.
Which is something. So, Steve, presumably, Trump is going to send some troops to the border. Now, this caravan, as I'm sure our viewers know, have been following this, these are people that started in Honduras that are walking through Mexico. The idea that they would even get close to the border by the Tuesday election is impossible on it. So what do you think it means to have sending troops there when there's no there's no visible threat for them to meet.
Yes. Well, there's not only no threat, they're not doing anything illegal. It is legal to